I said to myself, this is different. And I have to learn more. It's true freedom. It really is. It's transformational. When I work with someone, it's a 9-week process, and they're not the same person who entered my office and exited my office. They are transformed. Even if a doctor has told you there's nothing more that can be done, don't believe it. The mind is beautiful. The body is beautiful. It can heal. It just needs the right support, right? And you give it the right support. It doesn't even matter if let's say, well, my dad had, my mom had, it's genetics. Genetics kind of like loads the gun, but it's our environment that pulls the trigger.
Welcome back to the RTT Experience. I'm your host, Jenny Lineberger, and today I'm excited to welcome Elizabeth Valdez to the show. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here.
Jennifer, thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
So, before you even thought about becoming an RTT therapist, when you were trying it out for your own benefit, what was the issue or the reason why you wanted to have a session on yourself?
I think a lot of it was, like most people, we have emotional blocks and we have some trauma from childhood. And there were just things I couldn't overcome. And so one of them was, feeling worthy. Feeling good enough and feeling confident. Because I had a practice already before RTT. I'm a holistic practitioner. And my business was kind of stagnant and I just couldn't figure it out. And, what's wrong with me? Like a lot of people ask themselves, why does it look like everybody else is successful and they're moving up in their career, and what's wrong with me? And so I had to go in.
So for this issue of wanting more confidence for your business and for your personal life, did you try any other types of therapies before, or did you just you did?
No, numerous. I mean, as I mentioned, I've been on this journey since I was about 19 years old. Learning so many different modalities of, learning how the mind works. How does the body work? How is the mind and body connected? I learned about dieting and fasting and psychology and so many things, nutrition and supplements and so forth. But these were subconscious blocks that I wasn't able to get to, that were blocking me, and I was stuck. So it had a lot to do with, childhood.
So what was the main difference then that you saw between the other therapies that you had tried and then RTT?
I think that it just went to the true blocks, what was there. And what happens in the session is that memories start to come to the surface. And you might see yourself, let's say, with one of your caregivers, a mother or father, and the memory comes up. And as the RTT hypnotherapist is working with you, it's like the dots start to connect. You have understanding as to, oh my God, I get it now. Whatever she said or he said or did created this issue within myself.
So you had like an aha moment.
Yeah, because in that moment I realized that is when I created that limiting belief. They might have said something to me because they were upset or they didn't want me doing something, but I was a kind of a rebellious kid. And so if they said something to me, I made it about me, like I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy enough. And that's the core. That's the issue that keeps so many people stuck, and they have no idea. So the session gave me clarity. And then in the session, the therapist will help you to reframe the event, which is essentially changing how you're holding it. Because it's not so much what happened, but it's the meaning you give the event.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what changes, that is what transforms in the session. And so then, the therapist makes you a personalized recording, and every time you listen to it, it's like you're having a session each time you listen to it. And it's rewiring and reconditioning your mind. And that is creating all the internal changes in your subconscious mind, because the beauty of the brain is it has neuroplasticity. It can change. You can create new neural pathways, new neural networks. And so now I look back, and those things, those memories, those issues don't even come into my mind anymore. Where before it was just this recording, this thing, I would feel bad and think about the event, and now it's like out of my mind, out of my psyche. It's gone.
That's great.
And that didn't happen with the other modalities, even though the other modalities were wonderful and they helped me. This is what created that profound change.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how did you know that the session you had, that it had worked for you? Like the one you had for, let's say, the confidence one, you went in for confidence. How did you know? Did you have a tangible result that you can say, oh, this really worked for me because now I can do A, B, and C? Or
well, the results come differently for everyone. Sometimes they're instantaneous. Sometimes they come over time. I would say I had one profound experience where I went to a training in Tennessee for another type of hypnosis, and I'm always upgrading. I'm always like, what else can I learn? Because it's important for a practitioner to have
that's great.
toolbox.
Yeah, that's great.
So I befriended one of the other students in the class, and then we were on a break and we decided to go somewhere. And she said something really profound. And when she said it, it was like an epiphany inside of myself. And my internal voice was, I don't think like that anymore. I used to think like that. And when did it happen? When did the change occur? And I was just in awe.
That is so interesting. So you didn't really recognize the change in you until you actually saw the insecurities in someone else. And then you're like, I'm not like that anymore.
In that specific issue, yes.
Wow.
In other ways, I could see I had more confidence and I was improving, and the issues that we worked on were no longer, I wasn't dwelling on them anymore. But this specific piece, it was just, I couldn't believe it. And I was just like, I don't know. I'm like, so thankful, because that was an identity I was carrying. And it peeled it back, and no more.
That's so cool. So when you saw the results in you, is that when you decided to go get certified so that you could add it to your practice? Or
yes, I did, because I saw how it worked. I saw that it was different than traditional hypnosis. I saw that it just went deeper. And I was already starting to envision how I could weave it into and incorporate it into what I was already doing with clients, because I do homeopathy, which is a holistic form of medicine, and it's holistic, meaning the whole person, the mental, emotional, and physical. And I started to realize that this could really be complementary. So, when I work with someone, we're addressing the person from different angles. Mm-hmm. And to address the issue. And it's wonderful, because it's like you are like I give the clients the metaphor of an onion, right? All the layers.
The layers.
Peeling away all of the layers, right? All the limiting beliefs, all the stories and narratives they tell themselves, these identities. And we're coming to that person, that whole person, the person you were born to be before life happened, And it's true freedom. It really is. It's transformational. When I work with someone, it's a 9-week process, and they're not the same person who entered my office and exited my office. They are transformed.
That is so cool to be able to watch that process. So what's the biggest transformation you've seen in a client? Like, if you could just pick your one client where that
Oh my
you were like,
gosh.
oh my gosh, what a big change? Or
I mean, there are so many over the years. It's kind of hard to just pick one, but one of my most recent transformations with seeing this client transform, it wasn't the main issue he wanted to address. In fact, I don't think he even focused on addressing this issue, but he had diabetes.
okay.
And if you're familiar with Louise Hay, her book, You Can Heal Yourself, I believe is the name of the title.
I've come across it.
Yeah, it will give you like what the symptom is, and then right next to it, it'll tell you the person's belief. So with diabetes, it's they are missing the sweetness in life. And I thought that is profound.
Wow.
Right? Because they are using sugar in all its forms as a bridge, right? Because they missed something in their childhood, in their development. We all have needs, right? We need to be seen, heard, loved, understood, protected.
Mm-hmm.
And when sometimes they're all missing, unfortunately, but when we don't, these needs are not met within us as children,
Mm-hmm.
we start to look for other things to fill that void. And for some people, it's sugar. And in this case, we addressed the trauma from the past, right?
Wow.
So when we address the trauma, that craving for sugar goes away. He naturally started to lose weight. He naturally started to change his diet. And he was on 5 medications. Doctor removed 4 of the medications. So it's only 1-to-1. And his AC1 is within the normal range now.
Wow, that really is an amazing transformation. Wow.
That lets you know the connection, the mind-body connection. When you heal the mind, the body follows.
So do you think that behind every issue that we have, there is a root cause or something that we can look into?
Yeah, and it could be many things. It could be many things. It could be, a vitamin deficiency, a mineral deficiency. It could be, a pathogen like a parasite, virus, mold, bacteria. But it is the stress that the individual is experiencing. As an example, if the person as a child is living and growing up in an environment that's stressful, it's chaotic, maybe there's addiction,
Mm-hmm.
that totally resets that child's nervous system, right? And now is experiencing stress. And if there's another argument or fight in the home, there's violence. Again, these are imprints that are created in that child's subconscious mind. So now his world doesn't feel safe. He doesn't feel protected. So what happens when you feel stress is your immune system, right?
Starts to go down, yeah.
Starts to go down. So what happens, right? The door opens wide for all of these things to happen.
You start to get sick.
You start to get sick,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if those issues don't get resolved, the trauma doesn't get resolved or processed, there it is at the subconscious level. There's a test, an ACEs test that someone could go online and answer the test, and it'll tell you that the more trauma you experienced in your life, like neglect and abandonment, the higher the chances are for that person to develop some form of disease, autoimmune disease, and so forth. So this is the beauty of RTT, that it can help you resolve that trauma, those limiting beliefs, because then the body knows how to heal.
Mm-hmm.
It knows how to heal, but it needs the right environment.
What about cases where maybe the doctors have said, there's nothing else we can do, or this has no cure? Have you seen cases of people that thought there was no hope, and actually doing the subconscious work and releasing things actually worked?
Absolutely. It's very common, unfortunately. the doctors can't do anymore. We've given you all the drugs. They don't seem to be working for you. So they usually tell them it's in your head. So some doctors, I think, know about hypnosis, and they will tell the client, go find a hypnotist. And so this gentleman came to see me in such a terrible state, tall, rugged man, but he was experiencing just, I think they had put him on a medication, and because of that medication, he was feeling some side effects. And he was just in a terrible state, a lot of muscle. He was losing his muscle mass, and his energy. He was just like a withering self of his former self. But we started to work on the trauma, on his experiences, on the past. Even though he said, well, I've forgiven, my dad, subconsciously, there was still wounds there. And I helped him to process that in the session, the reframe, along with homeopathy, of course, as I integrated into my work, and was changing dramatically. Every time I saw him, he was better. He was improving. His mindset was changing. He had a very negative mindset. And so that started to change as well. And a complete transformation. He was ready to go back to work. Yeah.
How long do you typically see, your clients improve?
Everyone's different. Everyone's brain is different. Their body's different. Of course, the longer they've had the issue, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, right? Because it's progressed. But sometimes it's one session. Sometimes it's two. Sometimes it's three. And in other cases, like I said, if they've had the issue for many years, it might take another session for them to see improvement.
So in your practice, do you specialize on certain things, or are you open to, do you help everyone, or do you have a niche?
My niche is anxiety. But here's the thing. When you start to work with that person's specific issues, their trauma, or their limiting beliefs, there's like a domino effect, right? So what starts to happen? Depression goes away. I've seen eczema, rosacea disappear. I'm working with a gentleman right now, OCD, 70% better, because we're working on all his trauma, unresolved issues.
Wow.
So even though that's my niche, I pretty much see, A to Z.
That's mind-blowing. How do you measure tangible results for your clients?
I have the client do a writing exercise. I have them kind of rate, what are the issues that you want to work on in this 9-week process? And then part of how I work with the client is I check in with them once a week, because it's important for them to actually tune in. Because if they don't, they'll say, well, nothing's happening, nothing's changing. But when that check-in is an opportunity to help them reflect and to see what's changing, what's improving, and they can see it.
And does that help the process? Once you see a little bit of improvement, does it encourage you to keep going? And
well, not only me, but them, because you're seeing the change, the transformation. So that's the goal, is checking in with them. What are you noticing? What's better? What's changing? What's improving? So I have them rate it, from 1 to 100. And so those numbers are continuously increasing. At the end, it's like,
because I guess if you don't track it, then it could happen. It could be like what happened to you with the first time. All of a sudden, you just one day you realize, oh my gosh, that's gone, or that's not me anymore.
Exactly. So at the end, when we're pretty much done with the session, they're looking through their progress report, that they improved. They were at 0, and then progressively they start seeing 50, 60, 100%. Some of the issues are completely resolved. Most of them are completely resolved. When they're not, I often tell them, I think you might need one more session.
Yeah. So if somebody watching right now is wondering, could this help my anxiety, or could this help any other type of, ailments, or what would you say to them?
I would say, that there's hope, number one, that don't give up. Even if a doctor has told you there's nothing more that can be done, don't believe it.
Mm.
The mind is beautiful. The body is beautiful. It can heal. It just needs the right support, right? And you give it the right support. It doesn't even matter if let's say, well, my dad had, my mom had, it's genetics. Genetics kind of like loads the gun, but it's our environment that pulls the trigger. And the environment is internally and externally. And if you have a lot of stress in your life, if the marriage is not, the kids, the job, traffic, that, depletes again your nervous system, right? Your immune system, rather.
Yeah.
And internally, again, what is the body missing? Something. What is it missing? Some kind of vitamin, some kind of mineral. Again, with my anxious clients, oftentimes it's a magnesium deficiency, and it expresses itself in the form of anxiety.
So what if they're open to trying a new type of therapy, like rapid transformational therapy, but they're a little skeptical about hypnosis? What if they think that, oh, I can't be hypnotized?
Well, again, that's a belief, and whatever you believe is true, right? So
in order for hypnosis to work, you have to believe that it will work.
Well, let me just say, it certainly helps, because whatever you tell your mind, it accepts. It doesn't matter what you say. If it's good, bad, negative, your mind will accept it. So I always prime the client when they're coming to see me is, be excited. Look forward to the changes, because then the mind doesn't get in the way and wanting to step in and resist or try to protect you, right? Yeah, I mean, there are people that resist change and they're not ready for the transformation.
Yeah. So the client has to want the change.
It's a willing process.
Yeah.
It's a willing process. But healing can be scary. I experienced that myself on my healing journey, but man, when you make that decision that you're worth it and you're ready, the miracles.
Isn't it almost like giving part of your identity up?
Yeah, and that can be scary, because this is who I am. This is who I always have been. So the ego, that's the shadow, wants to protect you, again, keeping you safe. But at one time it was serving you. At one time it was protecting you when you were a child, but you're no longer that child, right? So, and that's something that I weave into the recordings that I make for clients, is that we're creating a partnership between the conscious and subconscious mind, right? And that's what we want, because then that resistance pretty much disappears,
Yeah, I think this is just so fascinating. I'm obsessed, I guess, with the idea of, identities, as far as like the belief that you have about yourself. Like, why do some people say, oh, for example, I'm very comfortable being in public. I can get on a stage and that's just who I am. And then someone else will be like, well, that's not me. So that belief of just the whole process of how we create the belief of who we are is fascinating to me. And how when we release those blocks, your identity changes.
Absolutely. It frees you in so many ways. It frees you. I always tell clients, the answer is between your two ears. The answer is here, and you have it. You have the power to change your mental. I have seen clients that were on antidepressants in their 20s, and now they're in their 40s, and they're completely off of them, completely. Their hormones were a wreck, and now they're normalized. I mean, it's the body. It's miraculous.
Yeah, it's so amazing. If someone is wanting to become an RTT therapist, and they're watching us, and maybe they've already had a session or two and they've seen results, and now they're thinking about the actual journey of becoming a therapist. What would you say to them?
I would say do your homework, do your research, maybe reach out to a therapist, an RTT hypnotherapist, and have a session. In fact, I remember now as you're asking me, I had a client, she came to me and she had such a transformational session that she decided she went for the training and she became an RTT therapist. So, but yeah, just, do your research, do your homework. Does it resonate with you? Sometimes people just go into it for their own healing. Maybe they're not going to become a therapist, but, they don't want their own practice, but just even for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder how common that is, that you have a session that is so transformational that now you feel like you need to go and help people with that same issue.
Yeah.
I know this lady that was in my group, and that was basically as she had her transformation, and then she found out that she didn't need a background in psychology or, to have previous experience.
Mm-hmm.
Background in something completely different. And
That's
when she
true.
found out that she could do that, she enrolled.
Yeah, exactly. Marissa did talk about that in her sessions, that some of her best students, didn't have a psychology background or any kind of mental health background. So, yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I think one of the requirements, I guess, to become a good therapist would be that you've had that transformation yourself and that you really, truly, truly believe in it. And then, of course, that belief is going to show when you practice with your clients. And
the desire to help others, absolutely. And sometimes, maybe we're just born healers, we just, I knew back early on, and I had an experience when I was young. I was in a hospital in a situation, and in that moment I decided, well, I don't want to be a nurse. They were dealing with bedpans, the whole thing, and I know, but I think something was calling me to go into healing, health, but in a very different way. Your counselor at school, that's not one of the options, when you're in high school. Hypnotherapist, homeopath,
Right.
So, but yeah, sometimes we just have a calling, and RTT could be it.
Just a quick announcement. If your goal is to help people change their lives and you've already decided to become an RTT hypnotherapist with Marissa Peer's certification program, I have a gift for you. The certification itself is a significant investment, but you can receive a $500 discount just for being part of my audience. So just use the link in the show notes to sign up. Now back to the show. Well, I am so glad that you decided to go on that path, because I know you're helping a lot of people in your practice.
Yeah.
So that's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you would like people to know?
Well, if someone's interested in RTT and perhaps working with me and experiencing it for themselves, I offer a 15-minute complimentary consultation. And that's a really great opportunity to ask questions, to see how I work, and to see if, we're a good fit, to work together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when picking a therapist, you really want to make sure that there is a good fit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they can just call you and set up a free call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So we'll link all your contact information in the description.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing your story and taking the time to meet with me. And
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I hope to see you in the future in the show again.
I hope so.
All right.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Bye.